Rob J gave me an incredibly generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon and brings you today's video. Kudo King Among Bears versus partners Kaldama and Chrome, Ikra and Ishai, and Garth One Eye. Bristly Bill with Esper Sentinel and a Gaia's Cradle is pretty good, so we will keep this. Ozolith is good also because we do have a plus counter sub-theme in this deck. Birds of Paradise from the partner player, the first partner player. A Farewell, in case things get too far out of hand. We'll go for a Savannah here so that we can go for a turn 1 Esper Sentinel. Does mean that we're not playing a fetch into Bristly Bill, but I think if our opponents start getting down mana rocks and stuff, we're far enough around in the turn cycle that we might start seeing those. If we were first in the turn order, then might be worth holding off on Esper Sentinel for turn 2. Turn 1 Arbor Elf from Garth, does not have a forest in play yet though. And there we are, Felwar Stone, could pay the tax with the Birds of Paradise, and decides to. Ranger class is going to be another trigger from the Esper Sentinel, so if we can see a land that isn't Gaia's Cradle, then that would be good, an untapped one. Don't want our opponents focusing on us too quickly. A Good Fortune Unicorn is going to be more plus counter shenanigans. Alright, a Mirari's Wake, so yeah, gonna have to go for the Gaia's Cradle so that we can... I want to play Bristly Bill into a land straight away, so we'll go for the Ozolith. Arbor Elf now seeing a snow-covered forest, so untapping that straight away, which allows him into a Fires of Yavimaya and allows us into a card draw. And there's a Conclave Mentor for us, so if we could draw into an untapped land... Yeah, we can't quite do it. I was thinking we could go Conclave Mentor into our commander and then start setting up for landfall into Bristly Bill. We'll be getting multiple plus counters on every trigger, but maybe it's best just getting down the Bristly Bill next turn, I think. Copy Artifact, likely going on to our Esper Sentinel, paying the tax for it again. Noteworthy there's a Ghost Quarter here, which could go onto our Gaia's Cradle straight away. Not too likely this early in the game though. So our commander is going to buff up the Esper Sentinel here, which is noteworthy, so we'll be feeding Ikra and Ishai cards if we're not careful. A Gaia's Cradle here as well. And Ranger class being levelled up to level 2, so got a Wolf token, then whenever you attack put a plus counter on an attacking creature. Level 3 will be look at the top card of your library at any time and cast creature spells from the top. 2-2 down the middle, and the wolf will get a plus counter, and the 3 damage gets through as you would expect. Okay, Boseiju. So we've got a choice here. We can go Boseiju, get down Conclave Mentor. That'll give us 2 mana to put into Ozolith, and then we'll get a bunch of plus counters on the Esper. Or we can tap this mana down straight away, go Bristly Bill, get down a tap land and trigger the plus counter onto Esper Sentinel. I think I'm fine going for the Conclave Mentor play here, which means we make landfall now and lose out on a Boseiju. Noteworthy we can only do the Ozolith thing as a sorcery, so we can't use it as a combat trick or anything. Got replacement effects here, but get 3 plus counters onto the Esper Sentinel, so that is now a 4-4. And our opponents are going to have to pay 4 mana on our Esper Sentinel tax. We'll go straight down the middle with this as well, and takes the damage. 4 cards in hand and does have mana held up, so could have removal. Another Mana Dork, Elvish Mystic for Garth. And there's a Lightning Greaves. We are very likely to draw cards here, although it looks as though the Elvish Mystic is going to pay for the one with only 1 power. Draw into our first piece of ramp if you don't include Gaia's Cradle. Greaves goes on to Arbor Elf. So I'm thinking now, if we go for Bristly Bill on our next turn, we can tap Gaia's Cradle down for 3, into a Nature's Law for a white mana, will leave us with 2 for our commander. Yeah, and that way we can distribute more plus counters with the Bristly Bill as well. I think that'll pan out quite nicely. We're obviously playing into a board wipe, but hopefully we'll be able to get enough plus counters distributed to make the Rishkar's Expertise relevant. We can refill our hand and maybe even get down a free Mirari's Wake. Just need another couple of turns really. Orcish Bowmasters. So it's a good thing that the Lightning Greaves has gone on to the Arbor Elf there, taking out a Mana Dork with the Bowmasters. And it's clearly the Orcish Bowmasters that they were holding up during each of the turns here. They took quite a while in response to attacks, and then they took quite a while in response to our attacks as well. Allowed us to put the plus counters on the Sentinel though, could have got rid of it with the Bowmasters. Level 3 on the Ranger class now, so able to play creatures off the top with this. 6 cards in hand and hasn't accelerated his board ahead too well over there. Decides not to swing in with the Wolf this time though. So we'll see what we draw into here. A Hunter's Insight is more card draw if the Rishkar's Expertise doesn't work, so that's nice. Just need to get through with attacks on this. So what did we say? It was Bristly Bill first, followed by a land, then Gaia's Cradle, Nature's Law, our commander. Fine. See if this player has any counter magic held up. Allows the Bristly Bill into play. Let's go for Lush Portico. Bristly Bill can put some plus counters on itself before the Orcish Bowmasters becomes too much of a threat. And on top we see Arwen. We've got the Good Fortune Unicorn. Arwen's better than Good Fortune Unicorn, but I'd rather just be seeing a bit more mana off the top because I'm waiting to lose this guy's Cradle, to be honest, so throw Arwen in the bin. Again, priority being held up by the partner player, but allows the counters to resolve. So Bristly Bill immediately a 5/5, will try the Nature's Law. Gonna have to shock in a Temple Garden here. As for Sentinel, we will allow the card draw, and that will trigger Bristly Bill, so I'll spread the plus counters around and put it on the Conclave Mentor, and then play the Kudo, King Among Bears, which will turn all of our creatures into bears and make them all base 2/2s. So I'm just going to try and encourage blocks, go straight down the middle here. I've got a feeling that this is a really strong deck that our opponent's got here. So I'm just going to bully him a little bit and try and get him to use this interaction I assume he's holding on to. Another mana dork is Elves of Deep Shadow. A little bit less fragile to the Orcish Bowmasters thanks to our commander. Just 2, 4, 6 and 7 mana being held up by this player, so maybe assume that that's a Cyclonic Rift. And there's a Strip Mine which might go straight onto our Gaia's Cradle, although he is struggling with mana a little bit, so does tap it down immediately. And there we see Chrome flying in haste, and they're likely going to draw a card to us with that next turn. Does get a debuff though, goes from a 4/4 down to a 2/2, makes commander damage on this a lot less threatening. And that swings in to the left surprisingly, does get a plus counter on it. Okay, that's a cool one, a Lifeblood Hydra, and it stays alive without plus counters on it as well, which is noteworthy. You draw cards equal to its power also, so you could just play it for 3 mana if you were desperate. So I'm expecting a Rift here. Do we make them Rift in response to attacks, and that way we can try and keep hold of the Rishkar's Expertise, because I imagine they Rift in response to this as well. Yeah, let's try and get them to Rift here. Okay, they're taking the 15 damage by the looks of it. So they go down to 8. So, yeah, they probably have counter magic or something. They've got something holding up all that mana, but let's try Rishkar's Expertise, and I don't know, maybe it's a mana drain or something like that. They will draw a card from the Esper Sentinel, but this does get through, surprisingly, so let's go Mirari's Wake. That can come in for free off the Rishkar's Expertise, so now have access to 4 mana and haven't made a land this turn. This does mean that the Chrome will trigger because the Mirari's Wake is cast from the Rishkar's Expertise, and there are 5 triggers on Orcish Bowmasters, ironically just drawn into a Swords to Plowshares. So going after our Bristly Bill by the looks of it, can't make a land at instant speed here, and like I said before, we can't do this at instant speed either, so can't save it with that. And then Chrome drew a card, triggering the Orcish Bowmasters again. So that goes on to this player here. Okay, so landfall doesn't matter as much anymore, we'll just throw down a forest. And I'd like to hold up Swords to Plowshares, I think. So do we just go for the Good Fortune Unicorn and hold up swords? I think that's fine. Could just go for the swords onto Orcish Bowmasters now because we've got the mana floating, and that way we'd be able to make use of the Ozolith this turn. Yeah, let's do that. Might be a waste because we see a board wipe, but our hand's looking okay at this point. Put some plus counters on our commander with the Ozolith and pass the turn. So as it stands now, we can put a hell of a lot of mana into Lifeblood Hydra, although it might just be worth going for it for 3 mana. And it'll enter with a couple of plus counters thanks to the Good Fortune Unicorn. or actually 3 plus counters, and then we can put 3 more on with the Ozolith, so that would be 5 mana in total. Anyway, what's this? Bringer of the Black Dawn. Paid Wooburg for that. It is a 5/5 with trample. At the beginning of your upkeep you can pay 2 life. Search for a card if you do. So in typical Garth fashion, this is setting up some kind of combo. But if we can draw into something like Elesh Norn, then that would remove our opponent from being able to tutor with this, so yeah, it could hinder our opponent. Might be worth going for next turn, drawing a bunch of cards off a Hunter's Insight, and we could protect the big creature with Swiftfoot Boots as well. Turns out this player wasn't holding up Rift after all, but I think that was safe to assume after the turn we just had. There's an Urborg, which could help us out with these guys' cradles in play. Icarus Diki. And an Aqueous Form is the second spell we draw from Esper Sentinel. Chrome draws as well. And it's noteworthy that this is an 8/8, so it will not be able to be blocked. But does our opponent want to hold it back as a blocker or not? The 8/8 likely, yep, swings in towards us. And they get to scry 1, which could be relevant because they'll know what card is on top maybe and could draw it with the Esper Sentinel. Icarus Diki triggers, and our opponent going to gain a bunch of life from the Orcish Bowmasters, or the Orcish Bowmaster token, so back up to 18. Now the question is, do we try and deal a bunch of damage to this player while we can, because I'm not sure if this guy's going to go for a combo piece with 1 card in hand, or if he's going to go for a board wipe. And then if he does go for a board wipe, which board wipe does he go for, because Lifeblood Hydra needs to die in order to get the death trigger card draw, and yeah, he'll obviously see it in play, so if he has something like a Farewell, he might be tempted to go for that. Difficult to know in a 5-colour deck. Anyway, Loyal Apprentice for the Kodama and Chrome player. Does control his commander, so we'll get a 1/1 Thopter with that. And then a Loyal Guardian, so there's plus counter shenanigans on 2 sides of the field here. They both are loyal creatures that trigger on combat, so correctly putting Loyal Apprentice on top of the stack, and that means that he'll get the Thopter, and then the Thopter will get a plus counter. Noteworthy that the Thopter's a 2/2 as well with haste. Decides not to swing in amazingly though. What's he worried about that has flying? Maybe he's worried about us swinging in towards him, but not sure about that. Although in all fairness, we are about to untap with a bunch of mana, so yeah, he doesn't know what we're going to get into, and we've just drawn into Archdruid's Charm. So what creature do we want here? The Elesh Norn? I think it has to be after I mentioned it previously. So search our library, not going to pay for Esper Sentinel, so our opponent could get into some kind of counter magic or something. And we can search for a land or a creature. I think we will try our luck at the Elesh Norn. A card draw from Chrome as well. The plus counter is going to save him here, but we will get rid of this thing at least. Alright, it lands, so we managed to get rid of everything. Good Fortune Unicorn has it enter with a plus counter, or multiple plus counters, but it is debuffed by our commander, so only a 6/6, but better than it would have been. Let's go Swiftfoot Boots. We'll protect our Elesh Norn with that, or try to. We could always remove the Kudo, but they'll still need creatures in play with higher than 2 toughness. And also we'll be able to swing in with Elesh Norn this way as well. Okay, so I think we go for the Hunter's Insight here while we're free to swing in. And I have a feeling that this player might scoop in response. I think we still get combat damage triggers even if they do scoop, but yeah, I'm going to play around it anyway. So it can be our commander 8/16. And that should be lethal. If they've got a Swords to Plowshares or something, then yeah, we'll take the Elesh Norn in there as well. And then let's go Esper Sentinel to the left. Could be that there's a spite play from this player. He could go for Swords or Path to Exile onto the Esper Sentinel in response to Hunter's Insight. But we'd at least draw a card from the Esper Sentinel to that. So in response to blocks, we'll go on to the Esper Sentinel with the Hunter's Insight and try and draw 8 cards here. Like I said, it could be removed in response because of where I put the Swiftfoot Boots, but hopefully won't matter. And if they want to point spot removal at the Esper Sentinel, then it's not the worst place for them to throw it, not from our perspective. Draw 8 cards to Esper Sentinel. This player decides to scoop there as well, probably because we got rid of his tutor. It was a pretty slow deck from our opponent with the mana dorks and everything. And we draw into a bunch but don't have any mana left available to us. So it should be a pretty good game between the two of us now. 8 cards in hand. Our opponent is at 40 life. Haven't touched him yet. And he's got the Guy's Cradle available to him. Can get rid of ours quite easily. Got a means of protecting our board with Inspiring Call as well. Right, let's get rid of some lands, I think. Now our opponent has to be careful what he plays out here, because obviously it's going to go down to Elesh Norn straight away. Unless he can remove our commander first. And if the commander has a built-in buff effect, then that will work as well. Something like Tuvasa that buffs itself on the number of enchantments you control. Obviously they're not going to be playing that, but those type of effects will work against this little combo we've got going here. We do see a Field of the Dead. That is only 6 lands he's got, but Field of the Dead is no good with an Elesh Norn in play anyway. There's a Sword of Sinew and Steel, so they can blow up either Esper Sentinel, Swiftfoot Boots, or the Ozolith with that. We've only got Elspeth Sun's Champion as a Planeswalker in the deck. Draw straight into a Lightning Greaves, so if they go after Swiftfoot Boots, we can replace it with that. Protection from black and red, and a buff goes onto the Chrome, only goes up to a 4/4 though. Then it'll be more plus counters from the Loyal Guardian. Swings in at us for now. 6 points of commander damage thanks to the plus counter from the enchantment. And the Sword of Sinew and Steel goes after our Esper Sentinel. So 1 fewer creatures, and they might go after the Guy's Cradle as well. It's noteworthy that with our Beast Within we could go after their Guy's Cradle, and that will deplete their mana down to 4 if they lose out on the Strip Mine here. And they do. That's a risky play for them. But I suppose they don't want us having a Guy's Cradle, do they? But in doing that, it kind of justifies our Beast Within. See what we can do with this turn and double mana anyhow. Getting 2 another planes, so just drop that. Might as well play a Sol Ring. Lightning Greaves can be played off the Sol Ring. Mirari's Wake only buffs our lands. Draw a card with Chrome. And then I think we can go Lifeblood Hydra here, so do we just do nothing into X? Or we've got a floating white we could use. I suppose we'll have 2 floating mana here now because we've had to tap green. That means that we can still hold up Beast Within and Inspiring Call off. It'll have to be 3 lands. Yeah, I suppose that's alright. We can hold off on the Armorcraft Judge until next turn. So X is 2 here. So it enters as a base 5/5 thanks to the Elesh Norn and our commander. And 4 plus counters makes it a 9/9. Then the Good Fortune Unicorn triggers as well. So our opponent's in a rough spot here with regards to board wipes. But that's a 12/12. We're going to give it haste as well. And then I think we just swing in with everything and see if they want to make some double blocks. Could get multiple blocks on the Elesh Norn, I suppose. So maybe don't swing in with that. Yeah, we'll let them gang up on the Kudo, I suppose, if they want to. Deciding to take the damage. So they plummet down to 7, and like I said before, we should take them out here by blowing up the Guy's Cradle with Beast Within, but our opponent's been a good sport, and I don't think we need to ruin his fun any further than we already have for our opponents this game. Never know, our opponent might get down some overrun effect or something like that. That would be a fun way to get taken out. So Guy's Cradle, left in play, being allowed to tap for 5 mana. Okay, some double mana for our opponent here as well. A Zendikar Resurgent. Can draw a card by playing creatures, which he obviously wants to play lots of creatures, otherwise he wouldn't have Ranger class leveled up over there. But I don't think it's going to be enough, unfortunately. So again, it's Loyal Apprentice, making a Thopter, and then plus counters with the Loyal Guardian. And yeah, he's got 7 power here, so that'd be 14 plus 6. He doesn't quite have commander damage if he can sneak double strike onto us, but probably best not to risk it, so let's go for the Beast Within onto the Chrome. Alright, and he had Heroic Intervention anyway, so couldn't have got rid of his Guy's Cradle unless he was tapped out during the last turn cycle. Can't remember. But there's no threat of double strike here now at least. So I think we are fine to draw a card for each creature with a plus counter. It's just going to be 4 at the moment. Let's just use the Inspiring Call now. Maybe we'll be able to draw into some means of removal. Can't remember if we've used swords or not. Yeah, we used swords on the Orcish Bowmasters. Maybe a Path to Exile. Alright, there's Silkguard to give our stuff hexproof, although we've got hexproof and indestructible now anyway. Lots more mana to be made with a Kami of the Whispered Hopes though. So our opponent's got 7, 10, 16 and 20 on us. 21 with the Chrome. Of course, yeah, double strike and the plus counter there would have done it. Gotta watch out for Chrome. I did forget about that plus counter, but we've got a block to make here anyway. So all their stuff's indestructible, we'll just block the biggest creature, and we'll take 17 damage. So yeah, it's impressive that our opponent's got round the Kudo and LS Norm combo here. Still managed to play it out thanks to getting down the Loyal Guardian a turn earlier. Now goes after the Ozolith, the Shattered Spire, but it's done its work here. We go down to 6. Our opponent just told us that he has Kyrie, the Swirling Sky, in hand, which is a dies trigger, but of course it would have died to our combo here, so that would have bounced everything back into our hand. He's just been unfortunate that you got to be careful with these tap lands. He's been unfortunate with his land drops this game, but if he'd had the double blue available, or he'd had the Zendikar Resurgent out a turn earlier, yeah, he would have been able to bounce all our stuff back here. I mean, we've got a decent amount of mana and haste available to us, so we might have been able to get him anyway, but it's unlucky. There is Ayula, so hopefully our opponent will allow us to just show off this little unique interaction here as well. Got to show off Eleshnorn's combo, and there's another one with Ayula. Our commander does make everything in play a bear, so if we go for, let's just go Armorcraft Judge to draw a bunch of cards for the fun of it. Draw our opponent a card as well. But when the Armorcraft Judge comes into play, it is going to be a bear, which will trigger the Ayula, and we can either go for the plus counters or we can fight something. So I'll put Ayula on the stack first, and we can target any creature here, so it can not be the 12/12 because it's got Shroud. Let's just go Armorcraft Judge pointed at the commander for the fun of it, doesn't really matter. So there we go, the 7/7 Armorcraft Judge fights the 8/8 Chrome and goes down. But obviously you would stack it much better than I did there and actually plan your turns out accordingly. The Ghost Quarter goes after our green mana here, so we might as well tap it in response, and I think we get an untapped land with the Ghost Quarter. Yes we do, so ended up making a bit more mana there. Noteworthy that'll work with the Wolverine Riders here as well, so the elves coming into play are going to be bears, and we'll trigger the Ayula every time because it doesn't care about tokens. Just a little interaction worth pointing out. Anyway, not waste our opponent's time any further. I appreciate the fact that he's played it out here. Glad I got to show you that Ayula play though, just in case any of you are interested in building Kudo. Turn in sideways with everything and knock our opponent down to 0. So hopefully you all enjoyed that one. It's always, there's the Kyrie that our opponent needed to get down. Was just struggling with the mana unfortunately. Couldn't even play the mana drain that he had in hand for quite a while. Yeah, some big hitters there, but didn't have the mana to go with it. It's just unfortunate, unlike us. Yeah, I do appreciate most of my opponents playing that out there. That's always a treat. We'll be looking forward to the new Bloom Burrow, is it called? Whatever the Woodland Creatures set is, we'll be looking forward to that in the next month or so. But hopefully you're still enjoying the Modern Horizons commanders. Big thank you to the patrons as ever. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.